Hi, I'm Cyndi Lee.
And I'm Parr, and welcome to Om Yoga Today. Today we're going to talk about yoga and Buddhism, but before we do, don't forget to like and subscribe below. So Cyndi, a big part of Om Yoga is this amazing intersection or overlap between yoga and Buddhist practice.
Yeah.
And I was just hoping we could start the conversation off a little bit with you saying how you got there, how that arose.
How that arose? It was just my life. Basically, I got into yoga by going to college, and I was terrible at sports. So there was a yoga class that was offered, and I did that, and I liked that, and it was easy. And then I went to New York, and I was in the dance community in New York, and I discovered after a while that some of my friends were very dedicated Buddhists. And I was intrigued by that, and I had gone to some talks with the Dalai Lama, and I was what Roshi Joan Halifax would call a book Buddhist. So I was reading all these books about Zen and Tibetan Buddhism. And then, anyway, to cut it short, my friend Philip Glass was studying for many years with a teacher named Gelek Rinpoche. And I was invited to go to see Gelek Rinpoche, who didn't live in New York, but was coming to New York. And when I went there, he knew my name. Mm. And I only realized about a year ago that I'd met him many, many times before because I'd had dinner over at Philip's house and Rinpoche had been there, but I somehow didn't register him too much. But he, probably remembers everybody's name because he was so good and kind and loving. So he was my teacher for a long time. And I began to meditate, and I began to do many practices around compassion and watching the mind. And at the same time, I was starting to teach yoga. I was transitioning out of my dance career and into teaching yoga. And it was so obvious when I was teaching that everything I was learning in Buddhism was really clear through the vehicle of yoga. That when we're doing yoga, it's about your body, but it's also about your mind. It's about getting clear. It's about cultivating stability, strength, and clarity. It's about being kind to yourself as a model for being kind to other people. So when I started teaching yoga, I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a definition for Om. I just knew what it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't exactly what I had done before. It wasn't Hindu-based. It wasn't athletic-based. It wasn't too tight. It wasn't too loose. It was a middle path practice that I eventually came to understand as, really a form of mindfulness of body. Mm-hmm. And, in India, in traditional India, in regular India, in any India, there are traditions called darshanas, which we would call maybe spiritual paths, but darshana means way of seeing. Mm-hmm. And so one is yoga, one is Samkhya, one is Vedanta, one is Buddhism, and one is Jainism, and one is Hinduism. I think I got them all. They are the 6 classical traditions in India. And really, yoga is its own thing. And Buddhism is its own thing, but they're so closely aligned. And that just became clear to me in my own practice, and when I would teach, what Rinpoche said would come out of my mouth. Mm. So I started offering that on purpose. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like, maybe in more recent days where people would say, I need a niche in the marketplace, right. So I'm going to get wine and chocolate and asana, which I'm not saying there's anything right. wrong with that, but wasn't looking for a niche. It was a genuine offering of who I was and what I could offer. And like Louise Hay would say, I offered that to the best I could and still do. And the people that wanted that have shown up, including you.
And one of them was me. And that very much ties into my own story, which was I had been interested in contemplative practice during my performing years, and I took a class at Om Yoga in 2005, and you introduced the word Schemata, peaceful abiding mindfulness meditation, and that made me research the practice, led to a Chogyam Trungpa book, and a decade later I was a student of his teachings, and I found it connected so well to this moment of being on stage and having perfect clarity and a feeling of awakeness, or
Yeah.
really connected into my heart mind. And that was such a good description of those moments, that expression that I was feeling on stage. And that's called Om Yoga, right?
Yeah.
That sort of circled back around. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I can take this movement practice, pair it with that idea of working with my mind, and have a vehicle to get there.
Yeah, and I think that for me, it just really made sense. You know, it wasn't manipulated. It just makes sense. And I think about these different darshanas, and they're all overlapping. They're all from India. And so in Om Yoga, the practice is called vinyasa. And, you know, vinyasa has sort of started to become hot, fast, and loud.
Right.
You know, but this is not hot, fast, and loud. This is really to place in a special way.
Right.
And we can interpret that in different ways, but one way to interpret it is that we're placing our mind in our body. We're placing our body in certain ways. We're taking care. There's a quality of care and a quality of attention in our vinyasa practice. We're not tossing it away. So we think of vinyasa as having three parts: arising, abiding, and dissolving. And the dissolving of one thing is the arising of the next. So we have a sense of the importance of sequencing, because each thing turns into the next thing, and it's important how that's unfolded. And then we can also think about mindfulness. Right. Mindfulness is defined as placing the mind.
Right.
Mindfulness meditation is conscious placing of the mind. So we have conscious placing of the mind, and we have to place in a special way. So I think there we have Om Yoga, you know?
I also really appreciate, as we look at vinyasa inside of the practice, that kind of constant contemplation of things changing all the time, and how they change, give space for something else to arise. And I also love how that's paired with this precise attention to detail, which is what we call alignment, right? This like, there's a spot for each of these things, and we can explore it and work with that clarity. And maybe that's also a way to help organize our thinking, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think of alignment also as not only skin, muscles, bones, but what is my intention? You know, people sometimes come and they want to come to yoga to relax, and they can't understand why that's not happening, but they're over-efforting, or they're grasping, or they're super goal-oriented, or they're sitting like this, you know. And so I like to talk about the middle path, not too tight, not too loose.
Right.
And that is really a path of awakening, because you could be feeling very balanced, and then you're not paying attention, and you've gone over here, and now you're too tight, and then you're over here and you're too loose. So that's where Buddhism comes in. Buddha means awakened. So it's a practice of this relationship between too tight and too loose, and being awake to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so fun. I also love the integration of compassion practice.
Yeah.
Right? How we can think of yoga practice as metta or maitri, right? Or we can take a mind of loving kindness as we practice, not being too hard on ourselves, both as practitioners and students, but then how we can take that and offer it out to others after we've worked with ourselves.
Yeah, totally. And you know, when people come to yoga, they come for, you know, they want to get loose shoulders, tight butt, quit smoking, something like that, right? And an open mind or an open heart, you know, all for, you know, I used to say $15, but I think now it's like $35, you know, in an hour.
I like to say you have someone looking for God and someone looking for a six-pack in the same 60 minutes.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the same person.
Right, and sometimes that's the same person.
But also what really is interesting is this practice, it's like every practice. You start with yourself. You can't not start with yourself. You can't do somebody else's yoga. Nobody can do yoga for you. So you start with your own mind and your own body as it is, and the bravery, the courage to really just be like, this is my body right now. This is my mind right now. I'm agitated, I'm confused, I'm irritated. Because I like to think of myself as a person who never gets irritated, and it's just so amazing. But the truth is, I'm irritated, I'm crabby, I'm tired, I'm grumpy, I'm jealous, I'm sad, I'm joyful, I'm spacious, right? Can we see how we are right now? Or how is my body? I had 2 hip surgeries last year, and my body completely changed. It feels like overnight. And I don't recognize it sometimes, but I have to really feel so much gratitude for this body that went through trauma and went through chronic pain and chronic stress. And I'm still here.
You're still here.
And I've got some mojo.
Yeah.
So this is an amazing practice that then leaks out into all of our relationships. So if you can practice being appreciative, grateful, and accepting of who you are, understanding that that's impermanent
Right.
and can transform, then you start to see that in other people.
Absolutely.
So one of my friends said, well, I came to yoga because I thought I was going to get stronger or something like that. But I found that I just was nicer to waiters. I'm like, good, your practice is working.
It's working.
That's really working. Yeah.
Shall we practice?
Let's practice.
Let's do a practice.
Great. So we wanted to just share with you our mindfulness meditation practice very briefly. And so we start with that part of our mind we call our body. Right? So we're sitting like this. If you're sitting with your legs crossed on the floor or on a cushion or tucked under, that's all great. If you're sitting like this, bring your hands, however you're sitting, just an inch above your legs. Take a moment to feel the heat between your hands and your legs. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, let your hands come down to your legs. And the very moment they touch, close your eyes and sit a little bit taller. Feel the heat of your hands and the warmth of your hands on your legs. And all the way down to your feet and all the way down to your seat, connecting to earth. And then draw your spine up. Soft front, strong back. Relax your jaw. You can let your teeth stay together or your lips stay together. Teeth can separate, tongue is relaxed. And then slowly open your eyes. With your eyes open in just a soft and natural way, begin to tuck your chin and let your gaze come down in front of you about 4 feet. You're not really looking at the floor. You're just looking out at space. Soft gaze, not a drishti, just a gaze. And then
We can just tune into our natural breath, moving in and out of our nostrils. I always like to emphasize that it's not pranayama practice. It's just breathing like you're walking down the street. You can observe or check in with where are you feeling the breath sensation. For most of us, it could be in the tip of the nose, it could be stretchiness in the abdomen, or a sense of the whole body breathing. For our practice today, we can keep the attention of the breath moving in and out of the nose. We can place our mind there. And I love the word place. It's not push, it's not fix, it's not grasp. It's just a light touch. And then the practice is to keep the mind placed on the feeling of the breath. And when you have that moment of, oh, my mind has gone to dinner or my cute dog or wherever else it'll go, that moment is a chance to cut through the momentum of the thought and, like holding the hand of a child, very calmly bring it back and start over with the attention on the breath. So placing the mind, noticing when it wanders, with compassion, bringing it back and starting over. So let's sit like this for just a moment or two. If you space out, you can recognize that moment. If you forget what you're doing, you can recognize that moment. you can just slowly lift your gaze, allow the space and the environment to come back in. It's nice to just check in with yourself after you've sat for a while. So we just sat for a few moments, but you're so welcome to sit for 5, 10, 15 minutes and try Schemata.
Yeah. So this is called Schemata, which means calm, abiding, and it's basically mindfulness meditation, placing the mind. We hope you'll try it. If you have any questions, you can put those in the comments below. And I'm also curious to know if you're already doing this practice and if you're integrating that into your asana, and how are you doing that and how that's working for you, or if you have any questions about that. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be parted from freedom's true joy. May all beings dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.